Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who's just having fun with it. I'm just goofing around. I made yesterday, I had all this work to do, but I made this tier list instead. I've got a little bit of time. I have to go to like this chairs and directors meeting. So I thought, why don't I just fill out my Radiohead tier list? Now, they're probably like my favorite group, probably my favorite band. And I could spend hours and hours doing this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do it quickly. I think it's more fun. I talk so much about new music. You know why Radiohead's great. This is just a goof, right? Let me first of all show you. I have a lot of Radiohead paraphernalia, but this is just what I have in my office. This is an original Radiohead water bottle. Oh, actually, you can't really read it that well. This is my other one of these. This is an original Radiohead water bottle. Can't really focus on there because of where it is, but it says very carefully there that it's used to prevent usage of plastic water bottles, and that's how I use it. So that's really good. And if this one ever gets old, I have a third one as well. Still got the sticker on the bottom. No, don't. They can't touch it. No, don't even look at it. So let's get to my tier list, shall we? That was a cringy opening. Doesn't matter. We're all good. We love the word cringe. Okay, so first of all, these are my tiers, right? So for the S tier, I have Desert Island Disc. And for now, I'm not going to put a single album in that tier because I'm going to have one album that is going to be my single Desert Island Disc. Each of these tiers is named after a Radiohead song. It doesn't mean when I think about the song, I just thought the words fit the idea. So, the F tier, right? I mean, the D tier, that's We Suck Youngblood. That's one of my favorite songs, but that's, that's the joke. We suck. So, S tier, Desert Island Disc. A tier, Kid A tier. Just is the sort of middle tier. Let Down. And then We Suck Youngblood is the absolute bottom. Now, as it was with my other tier lists, their worst is as good as like a good band's middle, so even the stuff that's in the lower ends is still good, and I'll explain to you why does it go down there so far. So let's go through their albums chronologically. All right, let's start off with Pablo Honey. This may be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to put that in the just tier. I'm going to put that right in the middle. That's near the bottom of a lot of people's albums. But I'm a day two Radiohead fan. So day one Radiohead fans liked them before Creep. Day two Radiohead fans were like me. They saw Creep on MTV and said, that's great. Wakak, that wakak. You don't even understand. Like that wakak. I don't care. You can make fun of it. You can laugh at it. You can say it's lame. You can say it's cringy. You can say it's so 90s. I don't care. That wakak is what got me into Radiohead. I immediately recognized the Jerky Boys reference in their album title, Pablo Honey. Like everything about them was just so 90s. And that's what's good and bad about the album. Creep isn't my example song, though. My example song is the opening track, You, which I liked so much and my friends liked so much that my band used to play that song. So I have a lot of great memories of playing that kind of complicated rhythm, great guitar work all the way throughout that song. And the lyrics, it's part of what makes Radiohead such a great band, and they don't get enough credit for this, is that they are a band, a real band, as in a group of friends who make music together. And it's important that each of them make music together and that they're not just individual musicians, they're a group. And it's because they started off as a high school band, just like I was when I was in a high school band. And the song You and all of Pablo Honey just feels like they were just a high school band that took their best songs from when they were in high school and gussied them up a little bit and put out that album. I love its youthful exuberance. It's not a bad album. It's not one of their greats, but that's why I put it there. Now, their second album, The Bends, this is actually also going to be quite controversial. I'm going to put that in that same tier. Now, it's not that it's not, this is really an edge case. I mean, I really do love this album. I did not love it when it came out. I didn't buy it when it came out. My friends did, and they made me go to the Radiohead concert in Boston at the Paradise in '95. And I saw the show, and then I bought the album, and I realized how great it was after that. So, it really was like this sophomore slump that no one really liked. I love the direction that it went. I love how it's this intermediary between the high school Radiohead and then the very sort of serious post-doctoral work that they do with OK Computer and on. But realistically, when it comes to listening to it, and that's the main way I think about these lists, is how often do I listen to them? How do I want to listen to them? How does it feel to listen to them? this album is right there. But you're gonna see it's gonna be at the head of the just tier list. Now when it goes to OK Computer, much like my Dark Twisted Fantasy, anyone who says this is not a perfect album, a absolute blinding masterpiece, they're just being edgy. Um, so, oh, I didn't even tell you my example song for the Vents. It's actually just the song. I think that's the greatest middle point between old Radiohead and new Radiohead, because it has this kind of gentle parts, which are kind of announcing how they're going to get interesting and gentle later, but then also just great guitar work. I love the almost guitar solos that keep happening. Greenwood doesn't get enough credit for the amount of restraint he has, but you know, it all leads up to OK Computer, right? The beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy of the 90s, just this absolute piece of brilliance. Once again, my example track on this album has to be the opener, has to be Airbag, because I remember where I was. I was in Ben's Toyota Corolla. I was on Newberry Street. We had just purchased OK Computer at midnight, and we listened to it. And the first time we heard the sound drop out and the bass go do do, that's the way people talk about hearing the Beatles on the radio. Okay, would be like, the first time I heard "I Want to Hold Your Hand," I pulled over and cried. That's how we were. A car full of sweaty, girlfriendless boys driving in a car. Is just like, what was that? That was that moment. Great, great, great album. Then we get to OK Computer. Um, you know, this is also going, and you have to remember, this is intentionally suspenseful. Which album from the A tier is going to jump up to that S tier? Which is going to be my one Desert Island disc? If I had to have only one Radiohead album for the rest of my life, what would I choose? Well, maybe it'll be Kid A. I am going to put Kid A above of OK Computer, even though OK Computer was much more of a seismic shift for me, was a much more influential album in my life. When it comes to just listening to Radiohead albums, I will pick Kid A every day. I love Kid A. My example song from that, again, is the opening track, Everything in Its Right Place, but because I had the opposite response than I had to Airbag. I heard Airbag and I was like, wow, this is the future. I love this. I heard Everything in Its Right Place and I said, I hate this. I remember listening to it, hating the first track, hating the second track, then getting to National Anthem and being like, well, you know, why didn't they just do all that? I was one of those jerks. I was one of those idiots who wasn't able to follow the artist where they were going. And over time, how wrong I was, you know. What an amazing two-pack of albums there. Then we get to Amnesiac, which I actually place above Kid A. If I were to have sort of multiple Desert Island discs, if I were to have multiple S tiers, Amnesiac would be on that tier. I actually like prefer it a lot to Kid A. I think it's because it goes a little bit further, you know, a little bit further in that direction, a little bit further out, has sort of more of an emotional resonance with me. My favorite, I don't know if it's my favorite song, but I think the best example is Life in a Glass House. I love it because it's impossible to separate from Spinning Plates, which is just before, just the way these albums flow together. I'll never forget, like, I was in the town of Oxnard. We were camping in Oxnard, California on my 29th birthday. And I remember listening to this song in Amnesiac and just feeling that sense of like communing with the divine of humanity, you know? That, and I, you know, I don't do drugs. So this is just straight up like just listening to this music and just feeling absolutely transcended. Just, yeah, just amazing. Then their next album, Rush of Blood to the Head, that's We Suck Young Blood. That's just a terrible album by Radiohead. It's way too poppy. They don't, like, none of the songwriting really hits for me. I mean, they had a bunch of hits with it, but I really think it's their worst album, and I don't think it's close. Really, you can tell me in the comments if you agree. Tom York's voice is just all over the place. The drumming isn't as good. The production, all of it. Then I'm going to throw in the live album. I'm going to throw in this live album, and that's going to go in the just tier. You know, that's going to go in that kind of middle tier. I don't particularly enjoy listening to this album that much, but I am glad that they have it, in particular for the example song, which is Dollars and Cents. At some point, I'm going to do a concert review of every time I've seen Radiohead. Even though I saw them, you know, as far back as 95, the best time I ever saw them was in Boston. And the best song I've ever seen them perform. And you're not going to believe this because, how many times have I seen Pyramid Song or 2 + 2 = 5? How is it possible? How is it possible that Dollars and Cents, what feels like a filler song, is my favorite song to see live? I can just tell you that, again, we're talking about transcendence. And that's the thing about Radiohead. They make such great art that they allow you to sort of transcend. And watching Dollars and Cents, like somehow the groove and the singing and the bass and the drums, I felt like I was flying above Suffolk Downs in Massachusetts. It's like a dog track. I felt like I was floating above, totally sober, floating above. Really, really great. Then we get to Hail to the Thief, which is probably going to be pretty controversial as well. That's going to split Kid A and Amnesiac. That would also be thunder. That would also be in my top tier if I was having a normal top tier. Hail to the Thief is often looked over, but it's just great. I mean, it's great because they weren't actually reacting to the criticism that they weren't enough rock. Like, they just made this great rock album, and there's so many wonderful tracks. The one I'll use as an example is Go to Sleep, which to me, this is what I feel like. I feel like The Bends was the promise, and then Hail to the Thief was the delivery of that promise. It was this alternate timeline where we had this other Radiohead, and in that timeline, Hail to the Thief gets all the credit that OK Computer gets, And Go to Sleep is just a perfect example of that. The anger, the bitterness, the coolness. I taught myself how to play that song on guitar. It takes so much skill. It's got such a beautiful melody. Just really one of my favorite albums. Next one is In Rainbows. That is going to go in the A tier as well. It's hard to say how much that album means to me. It came out when I was 30 years old. I just had my daughter. If you've never seen it, my son was 2 years old, and we sang Weird Fishes together. And that was like my biggest YouTube video up until a couple of years ago. It was a fun moment, and the thing about In Rainbows is that it manages to do the wacky coolness that Radiohead does, but it doesn't need to, you know what I mean? Like it has all the experimentation, but it doesn't feel like it's not trying to explore or that it is trying to explore. It's just this it's like a beyond perfect album. I don't know. It's so hard to say because I guess Weird Fishes would be my example song, but every single track is amazing. Every single track fits in. Like the track list, the track order all works. I have it all in my head, and all the way it goes. Even the B-sides, man, is that some thunder. It's really dark out here. You see how dark it is out there? See that? It's dark. Even the B-sides, they were at this zone, and I think it's fair to say that they peaked. Not that they couldn't peak again, but that was a peak. Then we get to King of Limbs. This isn't going to be that shocking of a list, everybody. That's the one that I'm going to have in the letdown category. And it really is letdown. The thing about the King of Limbs is that it's a letdown. It's not even that it's a bad album. It's that they were on this run, this incredible, insane run. And they kind of hit this point. My theory is that Tom York was going, whatever kind of divorce was hinted at in Rainbows, or marital problems or monogamy issues he was having in Rainbows, kind of hit full bore here. He did that video with Lotus where he's like dancing and he's doing Atoms for Peace. He's just kind of buying his own press too much. It's too solo. I think it's interesting. You take like a song like Codex, and that's the good side of King of Limbs, in my opinion. The sadness and the darkness and the intricacy of these rhythms, and there's the hopeful sound of the horns, and that actually feels like that's coming out of In Rainbows. It feels like that's that continuation that we all wanted. And then you have a song like Little by Little, which I think is worse than almost any other song in their entire catalog. It's all of Tom York's worst instincts as a lyric writer, of just having just cliches said over and over again. Little by little, hooker by crook, booker by book, wooker by book. Just you know, the little tinky, 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 just this sort of tinny sound. It's still good, you know. I mean, it still has like all these cool layers, still nuts, you know. But it really is a fairly deep disappointment. And then finally, we'll have their most recent album, Moonshaped Pool, which I'm going to put there. A lot of people are telling me that it's their best album. I can see it. It's interesting because this album came out at a very interesting time in my life, and that line "different kinds of love are possible" was very important to me. And so I really associate this album with a very strange period of time in my life. And that's not here nor there. But the thing that I do listen to it a lot. I listen to it a lot and I enjoy it more. I'd say like a song like Deck's Dark is really the best parts of it. Just the atmosphere, the feeling, the ominous sounds, but there's like a certain strength there. I think that's my problem with King of Limbs is there's a thinness to there. It's not meaty. You know what I'm saying? But just yeah. So really I do think that Moonshaped Pool belongs among their best albums. Uh, but not top 5, not top 6. So what is my desert island disc? It's In Rainbows, and it's not even close. I just absolutely love that album so much. That is my favorite album of theirs. That's one of my favorite albums of all time. I find it to be their most soulful album, the most intellectually interesting as well, and the most personally connected. So there you go. Here's my tier list. It's a weird looking tier list, huh? Boy, I don't know if I like it like that. With just the one and the S tier. But that's my conceit. So you tell me, what is your Radiohead Desert Island disc? If you could only have one Radiohead album, which one would it be? All right, I'm going to stop the share here and go back to me. All right. Well, I'm here in my office. It's super dark. My meeting starts soon. So there's the camera.